ABC General Hospital spoilers for the next 2 weeks, March 30 to April 10, reveal that Port Charles is entering the kind of darkness that does not merely wound people, but remakes them. Grief is no longer staying private, secrets are no longer staying buried, and the lies holding several fragile lives together are beginning to rot from the inside. Marco's death has not simply left behind sorrow, it has created a vacuum that rage is rushing to fill. Recent GH spoilers point to Sidwell sinking deeper into grief and revenge after Marco's death, while Sonny is emerging as the man most likely to face the blowback of that obsession. At the same time, Rocco is under growing pressure to stay silent about Jason's sacrifice. Lulu and Nathan are bonding through concealment, and Sonny is turning to Rick for help as the danger spreads. There are also hints that Willow may uncover something explosive about Nathan and a possible connection to the Sidwell web. But what makes this story truly dangerous is not any single secret. It is the way all of these secrets are now feeding each other, pushing wounded people toward terrible choices, and turning Port Charles into a city where one withheld truth can destroy an entire family. Sidwell is not grieving in a clean or human way anymore. His pain is curdling into something colder, more focused, more merciless. Marco's death has become the center of his emotional collapse, but also the source of a new purpose that is far more frightening than sorrow alone. He cannot accept powerlessness, cannot survive the humiliation of losing someone close to him without finding a body to blame, a target to break, a symbol to destroy. In his mind, Sonny becomes the perfect enemy because Sonny already carries the weight of violence, already looks plausible as the architect of ruin, already stands at the center of so many wars that blaming him feels emotionally satisfying even before it is proven. That is the cruel genius of the trap tightening around Sonny. Sidwell's need for vengeance is not being built on truth. It is being built on pain, and pain does not care whether it is accurate. Pain only wants direction. The more devastated Sidwell becomes, the more reckless his moves threaten to be. He is no longer satisfied with threats whispered behind closed doors. He wants visible consequences. He wants Sonny to feel hunted, cornered, destabilized. He wants the people Sonny loves to look over their shoulders and realize that grief has turned into a campaign. That makes Lucas and Dante essential, because they are among the few people left who can still see the disaster growing before it swallows everyone. Lucas has his own devastation to carry, his own guilt over how close he was to the chaos around Marco, his own horror at realizing how many hidden agendas have already moved through his hands without his full understanding. Dante, meanwhile, is being pulled apart by instinct and emotion. He wants justice, wants order, wants to keep the city from slipping into another blood-soaked spiral, but he is also a father, a son, and a man surrounded by people who keep hiding things from him in the name of protection. Together, Lucas and Dante are pushed into a brutal position. If they move too slowly, Sidwell's revenge may trigger more deaths. If they move too aggressively, they may detonate truths that damage the very people they are trying to protect. That is what gives their side of the story such tension. They are not simply investigating danger, they are trying to contain emotional fallout that is already spilling beyond control. Every decision becomes a risk. Every warning may come too late. Every silence may be interpreted as complicity, and as Sidwell's behavior grows more erratic, Lucas and Dante begin to understand a terrible possibility. Marco may be only the beginning. The next death may not come from strategy at all, but from grief-driven rage unleashed against the wrong people at the wrong moment. And then there is Willow, whose role in this nightmare threatens to become even darker because she is no longer standing at the edge of corruption. She is beginning to understand how power can be used as leverage, and once that lesson sinks in, there may be no easy return. If she discovers that Nathan is not who he claims to be, if she uncovers a connection between Nathan and the Sidwell machinery now poisoning so many lives, the revelation may not inspire courage or honesty. It may inspire opportunity. That is the most chilling possibility in her arc. Willow has spent so much time being shaped by stronger personalities, manipulated by pressure, guilt, expectation, and emotional coercion, that there is something especially dangerous about her discovering a secret of her own. Instead of exposing Nathan, she may realize that information can be monetized, weaponized, turned into protection. Blackmail would not just be a dramatic turn for her, it would be a symbolic one. It would mean Willow has finally stopped seeing herself as the person trapped inside other people's games and started seeing herself as someone who can play one. That transformation would come at a terrible cost, because once she begins to bargain with darkness rather than resist it, the person she becomes may be harder to save than Nathan himself. Nathan, meanwhile, becomes more unsettling with every layer pulled back. If he is truly an imposter, then every relationship around him becomes contaminated. Every comforting gesture, every promise, every alliance starts to feel like performance. The emotional damage is not limited to the mystery of his identity. It spreads into the trust of everyone foolish enough to lean on him. That is why Lulu's growing bond with Nathan is so combustible. She may believe they are protecting something fragile, preserving a child's future, managing a crisis with restraint. But in reality, Lulu may be fastening herself to a man whose very existence is built on falsehood. The secret about Rocco becomes the emotional glue binding them together, and that glue is toxic. The more they hide, the closer they become. The closer they become, the more impossible honesty feels. And the most tragic part is that Lulu may tell herself she is acting out of love, out of maternal instinct, out of a desperate desire to protect Rocco from consequences he may not emotionally survive. But protection built on secrecy rarely stays protective for long. It becomes distortion. It becomes betrayal in slow motion. It becomes the sort of choice that feels noble in the dark and monstrous in daylight. Rocco's silence is its own form of torment. He is too young to carry the kind of secret now pressing against his chest, and yet everyone around him is behaving as though silence is maturity, as though repression is strength, as though Jason's sacrifice can simply be tucked away until the adults decide the truth is safe. But Danny's pain makes that impossible. Every time Danny grieves, every time he breaks down under the weight of what Jason gave up, Rocco is forced to relive the cost of remaining quiet. This is what makes the storyline so emotionally vicious. Rocco is not only hiding a truth, he is watching someone else suffer because of that truth, and he is being asked to believe that this suffering is necessary. That kind of pressure does not create resilience. It creates cracks. It creates panic, resentment, self-blame, and eventually the possibility of collapse. The more Danny spirals, the more Rocco may begin to hate the silence that Lulu and Nathan are defending. And if that silence finally breaks, it will not break cleanly. It will break through tears, fury, accusation, and the kind of emotional fallout that leaves permanent scars between parents and children. Dante becomes the tragic center of that coming explosion because everyone around him thinks they are protecting him while actually stripping him of agency. He senses the pressure, senses the hesitation, senses the unnatural rhythms in the people he trusts, but may not yet know how deep the deception goes. That is what turns Lulu's choice into such a disastrous gamble. By keeping the truth about Rocco from Dante, she is not preserving peace. She is planting a delayed detonation inside her own family. Dante is the kind of man who can endure pain, but he cannot easily forgive being manipulated, especially where his son is concerned. Once he realizes that Lulu and Nathan closed ranks around a secret involving Rocco, he may see their bond not as support but as betrayal. And because Nathan himself may be hiding an even larger truth about who he really is, Dante's anger could rapidly widen from personal hurt into full-blown suspicion. One confession could lead to another. One lie could expose 10 more. The family drama would then stop being domestic and become criminal, political, and deeply personal all at once. Amid all this, Rick and Sunny form one of the most volatile alliances imaginable. Recent spoilers suggest Sunny turns to Rick for aid, and that alone is enough to signal a dangerous new phase. Their relationship has never been simple, never been free of rivalry, resentment, or old wounds that can be reopened with a single wrong glance. Yet desperation creates strange partnerships, and Sunny knows the walls are closing in. Sidwell's vendetta is intensifying. The atmosphere in Port Charles is thick with suspicion. Enemies are moving from whispers to action. Sunny needs someone who understands both the law and the psychology of a war built on perception. Rick is uniquely qualified to help him navigate that maze, but the very thing that makes Rick useful also makes him dangerous. Rick never enters chaos without being changed by it. To help Sunny means stepping back into his gravitational pull, back into a history of compromise, obsession, and family madness that has always brought out the darkest parts of both brothers. That is why their partnership feels less like salvation and more like the beginning of another obsession. Rick may tell himself he is helping Sunny out of strategy, blood loyalty, or necessity, but old patterns never stay buried for long. The more involved he becomes, the more likely it is that he begins to relive every warped dynamic that once defined them. Sunny, too, may feel the madness of trusting Rick while knowing that trust between them has always been conditional and temporary. They understand each other in ways other people never could, but that understanding has always come with poison in it. In a crisis this severe, their alliance could either save lives or accelerate destruction. If Rick helps Sunny outmaneuver Sidwell, they may buy Port Charles time. If old resentments resurface at the wrong moment, the city could end up watching two brothers tear open the same wounds they once swore to leave behind. What makes the story so rich is that every major player is being pushed toward a darker version of themselves. Sidwell is becoming a man who confuses revenge with mourning. Willow is drifting toward the intoxicating discovery that secrets can be turned into currency. Nathan may be revealed as a fabrication, a human mask hiding something far more dangerous underneath. Lulu is choosing concealment over truth and calling it love. Rocco is being crushed beneath an adult burden he was never meant to carry. Dante is being denied the honesty he would need to protect his own child. Lucas is trying to stop death from multiplying while drowning in his own helplessness. Sonny is staring down a vendetta that could engulf everyone around him. Rick is stepping back into a bond that has always promised rescue and ruin in equal measure. No one in this storm gets to remain morally clean, and that is exactly why Port Charles feels ready to erupt. Because this is no longer just a collection of separate crises. It is a web. Marco's death fuels Sidwell's wrath. Sidwell's wrath targets Sonny. Sonny's danger forces Rick closer. Rocco's silence deepens Danny's pain. Lulu's secrecy isolates Dante. Nathan's possible deception threatens to contaminate all of it. Willow's discovery could turn private knowledge into extortion. Lucas and Dante try to hold back the tide, but the tide is now being fed by too many broken hearts, too many lies, too many frightened calculations. The city is heading toward one of those catastrophic turning points where everyone believes they are preventing disaster, even as they help create it. And that is the cruel beauty of Port Charles at its darkest. The tragedy never comes from one villain alone. It comes from the moment when fear, grief, ambition, and love all begin making the same terrible decision at the same time. Nathan Dean's return as Ethan Lovett should not feel like a simple homecoming, and that is exactly what makes it so exciting. This kind of comeback carries the energy of a storm gathering just beyond the horizon, because Ethan has never been the sort of man who walks into Port Charles without dragging complications, unfinished history, and dangerous truths in behind him. He has always lived in that uneasy space between charm and chaos, the kind of man who can disarm a room with one look while quietly hiding enough secrets to destroy several lives at once. That is why his return already feels less like a reunion and more like the beginning of a new emotional disaster, one built on old wounds that never healed properly and revelations that may be even darker than anyone expects. What makes Ethan so compelling is that he does not need violence to become a threat. His greatest power has always been what he knows, what he withholds, and how long he can keep others guessing about which side of the line he is really standing on. If he is coming back now, then it is hard not to believe he is carrying something explosive with him. Maybe it is a truth tied to his past. Maybe it is a secret about someone still living in Port Charles. Or maybe it is something even more dangerous, a buried connection that could rearrange loyalties and reopen betrayals people thought were safely buried. Ethan's presence alone is enough to unsettle the balance, because he belongs to a legacy of deception, emotional damage, and survival at any cost. He knows how to move through broken families, hidden motives, and shifting alliances because those things are written into him. That is what gives this return such a powerful edge. Ethan could come back trying to outrun his past, only to realize his past has been waiting for him the entire time. He could return with guilt, anger, or a private mission that forces him into conflict with people who once trusted him. He could even arrive appearing calm and controlled while secretly planning to expose something that will send shockwaves through the whole town. And in Port Charles, that is often the most dangerous kind of man, not the one who announces war, but the one who walks in smiling while quietly holding the match. If Ethan is hiding something big, then his return could ignite one of those classic General Hospital spirals where old pain becomes new obsession and personal secrets turn into public catastrophe. That is why this comeback feels so full of promise. Ethan is not just returning to stir memories. He may be returning to blow apart the fragile illusions other people have built their lives on. And if that happens, Port Charles is about to be shaken in a very big way.